Viability of a business. A business is viable when it is able to operate successfully over time by generating enough revenue to cover its costs and sustain its activities. Ratio analysis. A ratio analysis is a financial technique where figures from financial statements are compared to assess the financial performance and position of a business. The different types of ratio analyses are liquidity ratios, profitability ratios, and performance ratios. Liquidity. Liquidity is the ability of a business to meet its short-term debts using its current assets. The two liquidity ratios are the current ratio and the liquid capital ratio. The current ratio is a measure of a business's ability to pay its short-term liabilities using its current assets. It is calculated by dividing current assets by current liabilities. The interpretation of a current ratio shows whether a business has enough current assets to cover its short-term debts and indicates the strength of its short-term financial position. The liquid capital ratio is a measure of a business's ability to meet short-term debts without relying on the sale of inventory. It is calculated by dividing current assets minus inventory by current liabilities. The interpretation of a liquid capital ratio indicates whether a business can meet its immediate debts using its most liquid assets. Profitability. Profitability is the ability of a business to generate profit from its operations. The three profitability ratios are the gross profit margin, operating profit margin, and net profit margin. Gross profit is the difference between revenue and the cost of sales. The gross profit margin is a ratio that measures the proportion of revenue that remains after the cost of sales has been deducted. It is calculated by dividing gross profit by revenue and multiplying by 100. The interpretation of the gross profit margin shows how efficiently a business manages its production or purchasing costs relative to its sales. Operating profit is the profit remaining after operating expenses have been deducted from gross profit. The operating profit margin is a ratio that measures the proportion of revenue remaining after operating costs have been deducted. It is calculated by dividing operating profit by revenue and multiplying by 100. The interpretation of the operating profit margin shows how efficiently a business controls its operating costs in relation to its revenue. Net profit is the final profit remaining after all expenses, including finance costs and taxes, have been deducted from revenue. The net profit margin is a ratio that measures the proportion of revenue that remains as final profit. It is calculated by dividing net profit by revenue and multiplying by 100. The interpretation of the net profit margin shows the overall profitability of the business after all costs have been accounted for. Performance. Performance is the efficiency where a business manages its resources and operations to achieve its financial objectives. The three performance ratios are trade receivable days, trade payable days, and inventory turnover. Trade receivables are customers who owe money to the business for goods or services purchased on credit. Trade receivable days are the average number of days it takes for a business to collect payment from its customers. It is calculated by dividing trade receivables by revenue and multiplying by 365. The interpretation of trade receivable days shows how efficiently a business collects money from its customers and manages its credit control. Trade payables are suppliers where the business owes money for goods or services purchased on credit. Trade payable days are the average number of days a business takes to pay its suppliers. It is calculated by dividing trade payables by cost of sales and multiplying by 365. The interpretation of trade payable days shows how quickly a business pays its suppliers and how it manages its short-term obligations. Inventory turnover is a ratio that measures how many times a business sells and replaces its inventory during a period. It is calculated by dividing cost of sales by average inventory. The interpretation of inventory turnover shows how efficiently a business manages its stock and how quickly inventory is sold and replaced. Threats and what-if scenarios. The threats to a business would need to be planned for, as unexpected events or changes could negatively affect its operations, finances, or long-term success. SWOT analysis. A SWOT analysis is a planning tool where a business identifies its strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats to support decision-making. The strengths of a business are the internal factors that give the business an advantage over competitors. The weaknesses of a business are the internal limitations or areas where the business performs poorly compared with competitors. The opportunities of a business are the external situations that a business could take advantage of to improve its performance or growth. The threats to a business are the external factors that could harm the business or reduce its chances of success. A SWOT analysis can be used to identify threats to a business by examining external conditions where changes in the market, competition, or the wider environment could negatively affect the organization. What-if scenarios. What-if scenarios are used to consider how a business would respond if certain events or changes occurred in the future. For example, fall in customer demand could reduce sales, revenue, and profits. Another example is an increase in costs could lower profit margins and require price changes. As well as this, the loss of a key supplier could disrupt production and delay the delivery of goods or services. PESEL analysis. A PESEL analysis is a tool used by businesses to examine external factors that may influence their activities and decisions. The political factors that affect a business are government policies, taxation, and political stability. The economic factors that affect a business are interest rates, inflation, economic growth, and unemployment levels. The social factors that affect a business are population trends, lifestyles, consumer attitudes, and cultural changes. The technological factors that affect a business are developments in technology that may improve production, communication, or product innovation. The legal factors that affect a business are laws and regulations that businesses must follow, such as employment and consumer protection legislation. The environmental factors that affect a business are issues related to sustainability, climate change, and the use of natural resources. A PESEL analysis can be used to identify possible risks to a business by examining external changes that could negatively affect costs, demand, or operations. A PESEL analysis can be used to identify possible opportunities to a business by recognizing external trends or developments that the business could take advantage of to grow or improve performance. Contingency plans. A contingency plan is a plan developed by a business to deal with unexpected events or emergencies. Contingency plans are used by a business to reduce risk and ensure that operations can continue during difficult situations. One example of a contingency plan that businesses may use is arranging backup suppliers so that production can continue if the main supplier fails to deliver materials. Another example of a contingency plan that businesses may use is creating data backup systems so that important information is protected if there is a technology failure or cyber attack. A further example of a contingency plan that businesses may use is maintaining emergency funds so that the business can cover unexpected financial difficulties. Another example of a contingency plan that businesses may use is arranging alternative premises so that the business can continue operating if the main building becomes unusable. Thank you for watching this video on the viability of a business. I'll see you in the next one.